So they've cut this main battery cable.
Yep.
They cut this negative battery cable almost all the way through. They cut the cables on the solenoids. It'd be start solenoids and probably a glow plug solenoids. And then this control box, they've cut all the wires in it.
They took the fuel lines off. They sprayed foamed them shut.
Yeah.
There's a filter missing over there. And they've cut all the wires off the solenoids there.
Yeah. Hey there.
Sid, it's Troy Sevenkoff calling you back.
Yep, thank you.
So I can confirm that we disabled three excavators.
Yep.
To prevent the equipment from being used in the illegal activity of the blockade.
Was there an expectation there as to how they were going to be used?
I'm not sure. I've got the answer for you. I'm not sure what other questions you might have with relative to that. I wasn't part of that planning or the execution of that, so I don't think I can comment any further than that.
So, Sid, you spent, I believe, a total of 2 weeks embedded with the convoy in Coutts, Alberta. Meanwhile, the mainstream media types with the CBC, they were embedded with law enforcement. But I think one of the most egregious stories to come out of that was what the RCMP did to those excavators, as your video shows, and as they confirm, they went onto private property, went over to privately owned equipment that was doing nothing except occupying land, and they vandalized it. Probably the vandalism is over $100,000 in terms of parts and labor. Sid, what the hell were they thinking?
Yeah, I have no idea. Although I guess the closest thing I would think is that it was done out of spite. They were kind of at every corner running out of options. They didn't know how to deal with the protesters because for the entirety of the time that I was there, it retained its peaceful nature, which is why they couldn't just bring down the hammer. But they were certainly at every corner being turned around basically by the protesters in Coutts, leaving them with, I think they felt perhaps like little options. And for some reason, that was one of the options they thought they would go forward with.
Yeah, I'm sorry, though, Sid, even if they are spiteful, if you are wearing a badge and carrying around a firearm, you're supposed to overcome those emotions. You're not supposed to lash out. You're not supposed to break the law. I look at police officers at a higher standard than that, and it's shameful. But here's my theory. I think we are looking at sort of something lifted from Minority Report, the Tom Cruise film from 2002, in which they have a pre-crimes unit. So they rely on information and intelligence from psychics about somebody who might be breaking the law in the future, and they arrest him and convict him based on that evidence. I think maybe they thought they were going to roll in those excavators. So the RCMP pre-crimes unit came in. It's funny, that movie was set in 2054. I think they were just off by 3 decades. It happened right in Alberta in 2022. Your thoughts?
Well, the corporal who I spoke with, he didn't have a reason when I asked him if there was an intent they thought that the excavators were going to be used for. Maybe that was just his lack of knowing the situation because he wasn't on the scene, so to speak, I believe, as it was happening. But yeah, no, it certainly was the case that they were just looking to preemptively do something. I mean, I've shown on Twitter especially, and we'll provide more content as the weeks go on, but the protesters, they kept on changing what they were doing to some small degree. And again, this, I believe, was a frustrating factor with the RCMP and other authorities who were trying to handle the situation because they kept on getting thrown off, which is why, and it's unfortunate, I believe, that they did this, but that they did sabotage 3 excavators who didn't explicitly belong to the protest group.
And, you know, the other sidebar story to this story, Sid, that I find absolutely fascinating, it's when you go on social media, you see a whole lot of people saying, oh, that's a hoax. They didn't do this. You had that corporal on voice recording admitting, yeah, we're the vandals. We did it. Why is it that there are some people who are apologists for this behavior or even doubling down to the degree of saying that's fake news when the RCMP themselves admit that they, in my opinion, completely broke the law?
Well, it's an unfortunate understanding on their part because, like you said, I called the RCMP myself to find out, and he said, yeah, no, we are the ones who did this. Now, maybe they want to argue about whether or not they did was legal, and that's something that is very hard to tell because, of course, they work so much in the shadows. But without a shadow of a doubt, they admitted to doing it, and it was very nonchalant the way he responded to that question. So perhaps they didn't think it was as big a deal as it is, but that would just show an unfortunate understanding on the part of the RCMP.
Hey folks, that was an excerpt from my show, Rebel Roundup. Now, to get the full meal deal, why not go to Rebel News Plus, sign up, and never miss a Rebel News Plus show in the future.